Hey everybody, welcome to another Rollback. What is Rollback? Well, Rollback is where we bring the best of our pre-video catalog to YouTube for the very first time. And no best of list would be complete without this absolutely incredible 3-time podcast guest, the ambassador of Sweat and Swagger herself, Robin Arzon. Robin is a former corporate lawyer turned ultra runner, New York Times bestselling author, and massively popular Peloton instructor. She is a female empowerment inspiration at large for many reasons, not the least of which is the fact that she walked out on her secure corporate career to pursue her passion. She also survived a hostage kidnapping incident, uses that experience to fuel her direction and gratitude, and she currently manages her extremely active lifestyle while combating and very transparently sharing her journey as somebody who suffers from type 1 diabetes. Simply put, Robin is a modern-day warrior. She is fueled by the ethos that there is no finish line. Her life's mission is to redefine, reform, and rethink possibility through movement and to remind us all that we have the power to change the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Well, how did she do it? It's time to find out. Here is episode 99 from August 10th of 2014 with the singular Robin Arzon. All right, we're doing it.
Let's proceed.
What's
Accelerate.
happening, Robin?
I'm good. Hot New York City.
I know. I love it, though. You know what I like? I like how it's really warm in the mornings and at night. Like you don't, everyone thinks sunny California, especially in the summer, but it gets chilly at night. And I like to work out early in the morning and I like being warm. I hate being cold. So like getting up early and running when it's like nice and warm out, that's like a treat. So I don't mind it at all.
It's kind of like a misty, moist blanket welcoming you on a morning run.
Yeah, it's not a dry heat.
Definitely
not. No,
Not
but
when you're biking.
Last time I was in New York, it was February, and it was that massive snowstorm. So,
and you're not a snow cat.
No, I'm digging it. So I'm having a good time. I get so juiced from the energy of the city, and you're somebody who puts out a lot of that energy.
New York.
You know what I mean?
New York is New York is my boyfriend.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I have real relationships, of course, but for as long as I can remember, New York has been a real player in my story. And,
I can't imagine you living anywhere else. I don't think it would work.
I know. I mean, it's like I travel. I was just recently in India with my sister and my mom. And I mean, people would just stop and take photos of my tattoos. And I just don't think, of course I dressed conservatively in the areas that required it, but it was still very much, a visual conversation I was having with a lot of these folks. So that was interesting to see.
Well, you've definitely found your niche in merging your personal brand of fashion with fitness in a very New York kind of way.
Thanks.
You know what I mean?
That's the goal.
Like, you have like a whole thing going on with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the rings don't come off even when I'm doing trail races.
Yeah, like on your Instagram, which is always inspiring, by the way.
Thanks.
I love your messages and your Instagram. So if anybody is out there who just needs like a smile for their day, just follow her on Instagram, and it will definitely help in that regard.
Awesome, thank you.
But I was wondering with all the bracelets, like if I'm like out doing stuff all the time, I would feel like I have to take them all off or they start to get gnarly. So I'm like, how does she wear all those bracelets and be like sweating all the time?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess
they're like rubber, most of them.
Yeah, well, these, and then I do have a pretty big cuff that I'm actually not wearing now. And I did a 20-mile run the other day, and it was like giving me a rash. And I'm like, all right, there are clearly limits to this whole Sweat with Swagger thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the rings don't come off. Like the rings are
always on
24/7.
Oh, and you got the freaking gold-plated fuel band.
Yeah.
The special one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's actually dead right now, but I'm a fuel girl.
You do. So are you working with Nike right now? What's the I'm trying to get a grip on like the whole how it all works in your life.
I mean, I've worked with Nike in a lot of different capacities. So I've worked with them on the digital side. I used to work in a team running the Nike Women's social media. I've worked as talent, as a fitness model. I've worked as a running coach. They've sent me to sort of host, workouts and stuff internationally. But it's just, I'm a friend of the brand. It's not
Right.
like an official relationship. It's just on a case by case basis.
Right. They need to they need to do like the whole Robin look, like the whole line. On the thing. Have you helped them design attire?
I haven't helped them design anything, but I did help them style their running looks for the 2014 season. So
that's cool.
I mean, it's a conversation that have sort of been dropping those seeds, but I would absolutely love to come out with the Robin NYC like merchandise. I mean, but something that is functional, but has the swagger. So much fitness stuff, even now, even as it's becoming more and more popular and more lifestyle, so to speak, in terms of sweating in a lot of different capacities. It's not up to what it
could be.
Yeah. Not how you can really rock it.
Just do your own thing.
I know. And it's funny because I had the designs and everything for a leggings line I was going to launch last year. And I was using my own savings from law days. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to press go. And then I realized really quickly that I was in no way, shape, or form willing to sort of devote the time that it was going to take to literally getting it out. I mean, I was like, okay, now I have these great designs. Who's going to send it out? Right. Me. Who's going to the post office? Me. So then I had to like put a pause on that whole operation. I'm like, you know what? I'm a one-woman show.
Yeah.
And so I need to partner with an existing brand to make that happen.
I mean, if you thought you were working long hours as a lawyer, forget it. Like Julie used to have a garment line and she tells stories about what that world was like. And it just sounded like her life was completely insane. And the thing about that industry, from what I gather, is you can, start a line and start small and do okay and even get into like the cool stores and even, find a way to get celebrities to wear your stuff and all that kind of thing. But you can only grow it to a certain point and it's consuming your life because you always have to be getting the new thing. You constantly have to be coming up with new designs. And if you want to kind of get over that hump and get to like play with the big boys, you need like a massive infusion of capital to do that.
Big time.
So many garment lines, they just don't make it.
Yeah. And the small operations, I mean, just to break even, like, when I was pricing fabrics and I mean, it was like, I was about to press go with my first 1,000 pieces. And just the pricing, when you go from 1,000 to like over 5 or 10, like the big brands do, it's night and day in terms of how much it costs to produce. And of course I wanted to produce it ethically. So I was using a local like New York, Brooklyn designer. And I was like,
it's going to cost too much.
Like an arm and a leg. Yeah. And then to price it, was like the wholesale price was astronomical.
The consumer thinks you're being greedy and like making all this money. But and then you send it out to the people that sew it and manufacture it. You send out your patterns or whatever, and it comes back. It's like, here's make this banana. And then it comes back in orange. And you're like, what did you do? And they're like, what? It's just a weird, the rules of how that business operates are super bizarre.
For sure. It felt like a game of telephone at times. And it really was just consuming so much and taking away from other parts of things that I really find nourishing.
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing a lot of urban running.
No.
Doing that.
No.
So, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, how do you balance all these different things and be
no kidding.
Who you are?
Yeah, for sure. That's a battle.
So let's get in. I want to get into the backstory. Your story is fascinating. And just for the people that are listening out there, Robin and I met at Catalyst Week in Las Vegas last year, which was a really cool couple days that we got to spend. And it's sort of a, how would you describe it? Like a curated kind of monthly or bi-monthly kind of event that Amanda Slavin puts together, where she brings interesting people out to downtown Las Vegas, sponsored by Zappos under the auspices of Tony Hsieh, the CEO there, who is trying to revitalize downtown Las Vegas. And his project is called the Downtown Project. And he's bought up with I think he spent like $300 million of his own money or something like that.
Something
bought up
astronomical.
Like 6 square blocks of the downtown part, not the strip, but the downtown part, which is kind of downtrodden. And he's trying to revitalize it by kind of investing in startups and making it attractive for young people to come out there and bringing inspiring people out to develop an interest in what they're doing there. And it was really cool. So that's where we got to meet, and I got to hear your story. And so I want you to tell your story. So take us back.
Back in the day. I'm gonna have to like refrain from like spitting out hip hop rhymes. This mic is just too juicy.
I want the authentic Robin swagger New York experience.
Oh Lord. No, I mean, I grew up in Philly. I whatever, idyllic childhood, all that. I was not an athlete whatsoever. I forged notes on my mom's medical pad to get out of gym class. And I think I always had this duality of like the kid who was really good at school, but with this like very much rebellious streak. And went to NYU, had plans of becoming a lawyer, did that. I went to law school, and that's when I started running. And
why'd you start running in law school if you had never been an athlete?
Well, I think in retrospect, I know the real reason, but back then I thought it was just to alleviate stress, like this quote unquote stress. But when I was in college, I ended up getting held hostage, like a crazy
right. Like I want to hear this story.
Yeah, so
because this is like a huge moment in your life.
It is. I mean, it is. It's probably one of the most transformative moments in my life. That's still, this happened 12 years ago, and I still carry it with me. I was just in a bar in the East Village with my friends, and this guy walks in with a gun and happened to walk into the bar that I was in, shot this man lying on the ground. Let me backtrack. This guy walked in who had already been shot. Then the man who shot him followed him in. Then he shoots him a second time, grabs me. I was just sitting on a stool by the doorway, drinking a glass of wine, a few months before my 21st birthday, but whatever. I think that's besides the point.
The statute of limitations.
Yeah, whatever. And then he grabbed me by my hair, and it was a really, really narrow, tiny wine bar. And he's just, expletives flailing, like he's basically saying that people are leaving in body bags. And I really didn't, in those moments, like time actually slows down. And you're like, what is actually happening here? Your body's trying to process it, and then it's in shock. And then it's just these really base emotions of survival kick in. And that's when he hands me garbage bag ties, or throws them at me, and he tells me to start tying people up. So I'm tying people up with these like slide plastic garbage bag ties, trying to make it loose enough so they can get out if they need to, but not so loose that he can tell that I'm doing that. And then he lifts me. Then he starts spraying us with this flammable liquid. He's spraying us with kerosene. And I had literally chunks of my hair ripped out from how forcefully he yanked me. So
he shot this guy outside of the bar. The guy is injured and runs into the bar. He follows him, but the guy has like spray kerosene on his person.
Later I found out he had multiple guns. He had swords, like full on samurai swords underneath his clothing. He had a catheter. I can't do this. Yeah. He had a catheter on him, because he planned for this takeover to take days. So, that was like, thankfully I didn't know any of that at the time. I saw the gun, felt the gun, and then he starts spraying us with this flammable liquid, and then busts out a barbecue lighter and starts flicking it in people's faces. It was in that moment that I was like, okay, this isn't a robbery. This is like, he wants people to die.
Yeah, this is a psychopath, straight up.
Straight up. And he grabs me, and he proceeds to use me as his main hostage, like as a human shield, essentially, right, body to body. I was right in front of him. The NYPD are now outside of the bar. It's a tiny bar, so this couldn't have been, maybe it wasn't that many feet, maybe like a few hundred feet away, if that. And he wants to talk to the police outside. So then I became this like pseudo negotiator, where I'm calling the 911 on my cell phone and then negotiating between this guy, Steven Johnson, and the NYPD outside. And I'm asking for his demands. He has none. Then he starts speaking to me in Spanish. Somehow he was able to tell that I'm Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican and Cuban. And so then I'm like, all right, maybe I can humanize the situation. So in Spanish, I start talking to this guy about his son, about his family, about his life, and trying to really figure out like what it is that he was doing there and how to salvage this. And, he really didn't have, he was just so disturbed. And the only intelligible parts of the conversation were when he was talking about his kid. And at the time, his son was 10 years old. And his wife had just died of AIDS. And I just think he was an unhinged racist. He wanted to kill white people. He wanted all white people to die. Very explicitly said that multiple times. And I just remember, like, the refrain in my mind, I'm sure there were many things, but what I remember so distinctly was thinking, this is not my story. And it was one of the first moments that I understood my life as sort of the story that I was putting out into the world. Mm-hmm. I think before then, like, I dealt with stuff, but pretty uneventful life, I think, until then. And then at 20, when you're kind of dealing with your own mortality and then the mortality of 20 other people, because you don't want to set this guy off. I think major is an understatement.
So how long did this go on for?
It was only like 2 hours.
Right.
But when you're going through that, it felt like a week.
And how did it get resolved?
So this woman, Anne Margaret, who I didn't know at the time, but now I know, she was sitting in a wash basin, like a sink. She lunges up and jumps him from behind at one point when he holstered the gun, because he had the gun to my right temple, the barbecue lighter to my left, and then he's dealing with like me and the cell phone. So he's juggling a lot. Then he holsters the gun in his waistband, and she just jumps him from behind. And then all I felt was a sensation of falling. And then I see the NYPD rush in. I heard a gunshot. Ended up just grazing his temple, and he's fine. He's
they just bum
alive.
rushed him and tackled him. And that's it's amazing that got resolved productively.
Nobody died. 4 people were shot, and nobody died. I mean, that is like. That's a success story.
And this woman, Anne Margaret, I mean, she saved your life.
100%. Like a real life hero. Yeah. And
you talk to her still? Do you know her?
Yeah, I do know her. She's doing so great. I was already in law school we became really friends after this event, and then I went to law school, and now since then she's become an attorney. She has a kid.
Oh wow!
So like, our paths it's amazing. Like she's an incredible person, and now she's a new mom. So I'm happy for her.
And the perpetrator, he's in jail.
He's in jail. Yeah, he was indicted on 72 counts.
Wow.
So Rikers will be his home.
And did they figure out like what was motivating? I mean, who was the guy who he initially shot? Was that just random?
Totally random. And I just recently found out, coincidentally, I was speaking to one of the experts that they had engaged on the case. And she told me, because I wasn't supposed to, because I was a witness and I was involved, I really wasn't supposed to know more than my own recollection. Mm-hmm. But, 10 years later, I happened to meet this woman, and she told me that he wanted to kill Jewish people. And he was going to the 2nd Avenue Deli, but it was the Sabbath. It was Saturday, Shabbat. So it was closed.
No one was there. Oh, no.
So he just came into the bar that I was at.
Right.
So this was, it was a Friday night, still Shabbat. But yeah, so it was a Friday night, 2nd Avenue Deli is closed. So he just happened to be right in front of the bar where I was. And that's it. I mean, it was just, there was no... It was very calculated, but the location and the timing was not. That was complete happenstance.
And you just find yourself at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Completely random situation. And so in the aftermath of this, and then having to get involved as a witness in all of that, I would imagine that there's a pretty significant sort of post-traumatic stress that goes hand in hand with that. I mean, how did you kind of manage the aftermath?
Well, he was tried 3 times. I mean, I think, I'm pretty sure from a legal perspective, the battle was all related to his mental health and his defense being insanity. Mm-hmm. But I mean, so reliving that each time and seeing him each time was really, I mean, it was traumatic for me. But in dealing with it, I was entering my senior year at NYU. I kept thinking, I'm fine. And I went to talk therapy for a while, and it was like speaking to a counselor and whatever. And I felt okay, but it wasn't until I started running in law school that I really started to process all of that. And in ways that I didn't even realize. Like, I would just be really running a mile or 2, 3. It started very, very, very basic. And I'd think like a random thought would pop into my head about this man, or I would have an image of his face at an intersection. And I'm like, why am I thinking about this dude? Like, this has been 2 years later. And that's when I really started to process it all.
Right.
And then I get these abstract questions and existential questions of like, why am I here? Am I supposed to be in law school? And it, I don't know. And I mean, it was just like question mark after question mark. And only like in the past decade have I slowly sort of been chipping away at all those answers. I mean, I think it's a lifetime
Right. And so
quest.
the sort of the gift in the experience is that it catalyzed some self-reflection and some thinking about like what it is that you're here to do. And that kind of has helped craft your redirect, right? So to speak.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think it planted the seed. I mean, I ended up endeavoring in a 7-year law career, a corporate lawyer, securities litigation, and intellectual property. I still can't believe I'm like, wow, that seems like a lifetime ago. And it really wasn't. But I don't regret.
I can't even.
Right?
imagine,
I mean,
you know?
people who I show up to, and like, I show up to meetings in like a sports bra and booty shorts, and people are like,
You were a what?
Yeah, you were, and very corporate lawyer. I mean, we represented like Fortune 50
I know.
companies.
Which firm were you
I was
at?
at Paul Hastings.
Oh, you were?
My entire
Yeah,
career.
like biggest law firms in the world. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Securities litigation and like.
I mean, and during subprime, like
Right.
this was like one of the most intense. I mean, it was like 80-hour weeks, like just fighting for the banks. It was so crazy. But I really kind of relished, like, I really don't regret one bit, not 1 hour I spent in that law firm, because it really makes me appreciate my life now. But I learned so much about business and intellectual pursuits and just like savvy. I really became much more savvy from that part of my career, that part of my life. So that transition into now having spandex as business casual is kind of
Right. I mean, it's dramatic.
it's dramatic, but it's also like, God, I love it. I can't even tell you how much.
I mean, were you bringing the swagger when you were in the law firm, or is
Yes,
this pre-swagger days? Like,
no,
I'm trying to picture like the.
on. You can't even imagine.
You can't take the swagger out of
You can't
Robin.
take the swagger out. No, but I remember putting on my suits and putting on my fancy clothes, and I would get like a manicure and it'd be bright orange, or I'd be like, going to argue my first motion and I would have like a 3-finger ring on. Like I always needed like a little something to show, I think myself more than anything else, to be honest,
You weren't
that I
losing
wasn't
yourself in
losing
this.
it.
Yeah.
And I often think about the weight. Like that suit felt heavy. And I didn't realize until later when I was literally shedding all these clothes that I'm like, damn, that wasn't my gig, man. Like it just wasn't. But I needed to get through that in order to feel confident enough to really pursue the things that I'm pursuing now.
And so when you were working in the law firm, was the running starting to pick up speed? Were you doing that then? Or?
Yes. So the running picked up speed. The running paralleled my law career. So as I advanced in my law career, so did my running as well. And I went from, classic distances, 5K, 10K, to my half marathon, then a bunch of marathons, and then ultras.
Right.
But I think I only got the courage. They went hand in hand. I got the courage to sort of take on bigger projects and be a little bolder in my law career, and then simultaneously did that in running. And then I found that running was so much my passion that law paled in comparison.
Right. But the empowerment that you probably were able to develop through the running, I would imagine that would have sort of assisted you in your confidence in your law practice, all of that, right?
Without question. I mean, I think I even learned, I learned visualization techniques as a runner that I would then apply to I remember before going into court to argue my first motion, I was sitting on the subway, listening to MIA, and just envisioning the success of it. And that's not a skill or a tactic I had ever learned. I didn't know anything about sports psychology at the time. And it was all because of, it was a learned skill that I developed as a runner.
Right. So what was the moment where you decided I'm leaving this path behind?
A few weeks before the London Olympics, I had the harebrained idea of going. And I was like, I'm just going to pitch a bunch of articles. And, I knew some Olympic swimmers. So I was like, I'll pitch an article about them. And Newsweek and the Daily Beast.
Who are the swimmers that you know?
My friend Azad. He swims for Syria.
Oh, cool.
He lives in Venice. I wonder if you guys have ever...
I don't know him.
Yeah, he's amazing. So he didn't medal, but I mean, he refused to walk under the flag because of all the political unrest. So, and now like Syria has basically dropped him. So he's funding his own way to Brazil. It's 2016. So, yeah, but he's amazing. I wish him the best.
He's cool. He sounds like I should get him on the podcast.
Yeah, you should.
That'd be an interesting story.
He's a really, 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 and he's a young guy. I mean, he's only like 27.
Wow.
Really engaging guy. But so through mutual friends, he and I became friendly and I was interviewing him. And so I ended up pitching a bunch of articles to different publications. And I was like, I'm going to make like all of $300 from this.
Right. But you had already quit the law firm?
Like no, that was the catalyst.
You were like going to take your vacation time to...
I was going to take a leave. Well, I had taken a leave of absence and I'd done some traveling and I was doing some work in Europe, running a bunch of races. I did like a bunch of little Nike projects over in Europe. And I asked to extend my leave. And they were like, actually, no, you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go. I mean, I was already like a rising eighth year at this point. Like, I don't blame them for being like, are you in or are you out?
Right.
So that was it. I was like, okay, I'm just going to book this ticket to London that cost well more than my rent. It was so late that ticket, but it all was worth it because it was from, I ended up meeting a ton of people when I was in London, but it was there that I got the job on the digital team working with Nike.
Right.
So
I think that's a great example of how, it's kind of scary to take the full leap. Like you're in a very secure job. Getting like paid really well, you know, and that's very hard to leave, and to have, and you were able to kind of still do things outside of that. So you have one foot in, but kind of one foot out. I mean, you could have, had they not forced that issue, you could have perpetuated that for a long time.
Yeah, right? And I'm really grateful.
You were sort of compelled to make that leap. But I think that, in terms of when you start talking about kind of self-actualization or kind of, story, which we're going to get into, which is, your theme and kind of what you speak to, in order to really embrace that, like you have to be all in. You got to go all in, right? So you were forced to do that and, have some blind faith. I mean, to walk away from that and step into, I'm going to write an article. You get paid $300. That's
I don't even know if it was that much. It might have been like $100. But gosh, freelance journalism is a feat.
I'm going to spend a ton of money to go to London to not get paid to do something.
Yeah. And it was, I actually coincidentally met the CEO of Nike, Mark Parker, in London. And he and I were both happened to be in a Nike store. And I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go up and talk to this guy. So I was telling him my story and how, I was, really appreciative of the brand and I dabbled and done this or that for the brand. And, he turns to me and he goes, I thought about going to law school. If I had gone to law school, those pair of shoes right there would never have happened. And I was like, dude, that's amazing. And I just felt like this cosmic stamp of approval on my decision. And then he turns to me and he's like, you have really good style. You should start a blog. I was like, funny you say that because I have one. And I handed him my business card. Nothing ever happened from that. But, it was like those little moments of boldness. You have to celebrate those victories.
Well, and also he's giving you a pat on the back. He's saying, he's kind of saying, he's sort of like, keep going, grasshopper.
Yeah. It was like, I felt like it was like a little pat on the head, like just go forth and conquer your little area of grass.
Right. And so what was the next step? I mean, you're like, you must have come back to New York and kind of went, all right, like, how am I going to make this work?
Well, I actually ended up getting a job offer before I even came back from the Olympics. So I was in London for 3 weeks and then somebody at an agency who does work with Nike, they hired me for the Nike women's team. And I thought I had my dream job. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write copy and be a creative sort of voice for this brand and women in fitness. And I realized really quickly, that I didn't want to write under anybody, behind anybody else's brand or voice. In conjunction with, yes, but not behind. I was sort of this anonymous copywriter,
right? It's
social media person, and that's not really who I am.
Yeah, anonymously advancing somebody else's brand. You're telling somebody else's story, really.
Yeah, I'm being paid. Basically, my urban athletic experience, which is unique, is then, sort of appropriated.
Right.
And I'm not.
For somebody else's benefiting gain, right?
Yeah. Build your own dreams or somebody will hire you to build theirs.
Right. So, all right. So then in light of that, so how does it go from there? I mean.
So from there, when I left the agency, I was really kind of at a crossroads. I'm like, what do I even do? How do I make money? So I had already been coaching some folks, some runners. And then I started taking brand consulting gigs. So I was like, all right, I know about this space. I understand business. I understand social media marketing. So now I've worked with almost every major athletic brand as a consultant.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of thing, like what do you bring to that? Like when they come to you and they say, help us figure out how we're going to position this brand or portray it, or like what kind of counsel are you giving?
It's on two ends. Sometimes it's on the product side. It's just like, does this even fly aesthetically, product and styling. And sometimes it's just marketing. It's like, how do we message to X, Y, or Z demo? And I happen to represent like a few demographics.
You're like the go-to person. Like we want to penetrate like cool chicks in urban
and
areas,
especially
right? Like,
a few years ago, it was like, a lot of that cool gear really wasn't around. And brands are scrambling, realizing that this fitness, that sweat is a lifestyle. It's no longer necessarily like the Lululemon yoga mom. It's like it's a very rich and vibrant community of all kinds of stuff. And I'm part of an urban running crew movement that really embraces the 360 kind of mashup of culture and sweat and style and fashion. And we just did it organically as a lived experience, like running to an art show and then running from there to like a DJ set and then like, waking up and doing it all over again. And, wearing sports bra to the club, like my fitness, I founded a fitness collective called Undo Ordinary. And, we throw a Friday night party and it's like, come in your sports bra. Like you're like, leave your stilettos at home. We're not into that.
Yeah. Cause your whole thing is like, you look like you could either be going to work out right now or you're going out. There's not like a distinction between
that's exactly. I mean, that's exactly what we want. That's what I want.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I would imagine a lot of that comes into how you style the specific photograph that is going to be in the magazine that's going to speak to that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, is that something that you
the styling?
Yeah.
I've definitely done styling before. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And I love that. But the problem is, what you mentioned before about, the gray shorts and the navy palette. There's still such a hesitance to just go in for what the minority that's pushing the boundaries of aesthetic and sport and this movement, what I consider a movement, a lifestyle movement. There's still hesitancy to like really go there with product.
Right. Because, what I would think is, there aren't that many people that can pull off your look, you know what I mean? In real life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a distinction between like aspirational and like the reality of doing commerce.
Right,
so
right.
It's sort of like,
and that's a balance that,
like you go to like a runway show or like the pictures in Vogue magazine that are so styled, like no one's actually going to wear that.
Right. Like who's going to wear like the $1 million couture dress? Right.
But it captures your imagination and you sort of, you can fancy it and you can aspire to that. And it speaks to like a lifestyle or an aesthetic. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I definitely see that. But I think with respect to running and cycling and all these other modalities, it's a little more down to earth where like, I just think people have to expand their comfort levels a little more. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a messaging, particularly to women, about how they should feel in a certain type of clothing for working out. And I think people just need to feel confident in being a little bolder in their aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, like, what is the biggest impediment with respect to women and fitness that you try to speak to?
Oh, God. I think the majority of messaging to women is wrapped in pink and diluted. I don't think that, now it's changing. I think the rhetoric is changing a little bit, but I don't think the sort of aggressive, like balls to the wall messaging that has been, with men in sports forever has really entered the space for female athletes. And I think people are even hesitant to call themselves athletes. I'm an indoor cycling instructor and I have women in my classes who go hard. I mean, they train like with me 5 days a week, really, really like working hard. And I'm like, you're an athlete. And they're like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, yeah, you are, dude. Like, you're a fucking athlete. And so I think that's a mental shift and it's a different type of empowerment.
Right, trying to kind of own the masculine aspect of this yin and yang in a certain respect, right? Like
I think
instead
so.
of being like, oh, doesn't she look cute in her shorts and her trainers, her tennies, or something like that. You know what I mean?
And I often say nothing cute, nothing comfortable. Like we are smashing comfort zones here, and I don't care how sexy or cute you think you look doing it. You're going to use every bead of sweat to become the badass that you saw in that magazine or you saw in that show. Like, I want to think that people can become their own inspiration and then push that forward. So you're just starting this movement of people who feel absolutely enraptured and passionate about whatever. I don't care if it's like, you're proud for packing your kid's lunch or like you just landed like the sickest, CEO gig, like all of that. The panoply of it is just as important if it's meaningful to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I
that's
think
true.
it transcends.
True. Yeah, and that's true empowerment.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like
exactly.
From the ground up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So walk me through a day in the life.
Ooh,
because you're all over the place. I'm
so,
like, what is going on?
So I teach. What is today? So yesterday, Monday, I taught 3 spin classes before 9 a.m.
Which studio? Where is that?
I teach at 2 studios. One at Peloton, which is a really exciting new fitness concept. It's kind of like the Netflix of cycling. Peloton is a bike that has a console on it. And we live stream classes from our studio in New York City all around the world.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So that's really neat. And then I have another local studio called Revolve in Union Square that I love. I love my riders there. And so I'll teach 3 classes in the morning, go home, eat like everything in sight, like as much. I eat like more kale than I can. Yeah, like my weight in kale pretty much. And then yesterday I ended up having a meeting about the magazine that I'm launching. I'm the editor-in-chief of Undo Ordinary magazine, which is launching this summer.
Cool. Wait, hold on a
very
second.
exciting.
Like, you can't just gloss over that. You're like launching a magazine?
Yeah. So I co-founded a fitness collective called Undo. And the whole idea behind it was this whole empowerment thing we're talking about, like how ordinary people can do extraordinary things, like undoing a lot of the sort of self-loathing and limiting beliefs that, irrespective of gender, we all have. And providing not only a training platform and a lived aesthetic, but kind of holding space for these amazing sweat-inducing endorphin moments. So we just want to take over. We literally just want to take over the world with sweat and do it with swagger.
Uh-huh.
So that's Undo as a movement. And then we kind of put that visually and substantively into a magazine.
Uh-huh.
And so it's going to be a quarterly magazine. And my friend Sophia Chang, who's a really, really well-known graphic designer, it has her stamp on it all throughout the pages. And Naivasha is my business partner. She calls herself a mood creator. So she does, anything from video work. She's long history in the music industry. And so all 3 of us kind of like are bringing our respective wheelhouses to the table, and that's it. It's a living mashup of all these things.
Wow. And do you have like a partner who's been in the magazine business who understands how to do that? Because like that just seems like a huge
it's a serious endeavor.
Off.
Well, Urban Outfitters has a new division called Without Walls. Mm-hmm. And Without Walls is a sponsor of the magazine and the sponsor of Undo. So one of the people who were working with it Without Walls actually has a former magazine background. So that's a plus. This has been like a pure labor of love. Like we've made mistakes and then remade mistakes and, so we're going to make many more. But we were like, we want to get this out there. And MTV just recently sort of picked up this whole story. So MTV Voices recently filmed us and is developing, some content around what Undo is and what it means to the fitness world and the wellness movement. So yeah, I had a meeting. I had to look over like the final, PDF of the issue. Sign off on that.
So when's it going to drop?
July. It should be by July 31st. So we're literally sending it to print today.
And will it be in Urban Outfitter stores or where?
Yeah, it'll be in urban stores. It will be. We have a bunch of distributors worldwide. A lot of like small sportswear shops like Black Rainbow in Paris, little places really just through friends. And we're just like, You want to carry our magazine? So it's just, I mean, the hustle is real, man. The hustle is real. And it's honestly not to make, I mean, we're going to make some money, but we're donating a large part of the money we make actually to Girls Gotta Run, which is a nonprofit in Ethiopia that provides young girls from like 9 to 18 with running gear and training camps. And we officially partner with them. And it's so much more than like $1.
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah.
It's service.
For sure.
The movement.
It's a movement that nourishes me so deeply. To be even a participant in the conversation, let alone like call myself someone who's pushing the conversation forward, is a real honor.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, social media makes it possible. Like we have little things like hashtag campaigns. And now when I search Undo Ordinary, I'm like, not even a year ago, this was just like a concept in my mind. And now I have people I'm connected with from Russia to India. I mean, they're writing to me the most like humbling, profound notes. And I'm like, A, you did that. B, wow. Like there's great. Nothing I can really say. So yeah, typical day, that. And then I had a photo shoot. Then I went from there to a photo shoot, answered some emails, tweets, Instagram, God, the rabbit hole of social media.
You're your own walking reality show, really. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, there's so, probably had a fight with my boyfriend. And then I taught 3 more classes. So yeah, I taught 6 classes. Oh, and then I went on my own run. Yeah. So it's like, normally it's like 5 to 6 classes a day, 6 to 10 miles, and business.
Right.
Hustle.
Yeah.
Filling it in.
But every day's pretty much different, except you're probably teaching classes in some respect or another.
Yeah, I teach 22 classes a week.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. What part of town do you live in?
I live downtown. Downtown. I wouldn't go above Houston Street if I had a choice.
I know.
So this is a privilege. This is a luxury right here to go above.
Well, I'd actually much prefer to be downtown, but I also like running in the park. So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I get the draw to nature, and I showed up to my first trail race. Like my first trail race, actually, literally ever running on a trail was a 50 miler. I went to REI and I was like, oh, I need some shoes to run in the wilderness. So thankfully I got something with a rock plate because, oh my God, it was just crazy. So I get it. I really do. Like I nourish that in me. But when I'm in New York, like I feel truly like I'm pushing the pulse of the city when I run the bridges, the streets, Brooklyn, like
it's urban trail running.
It is. So it is. Yeah. It is. It's like, can I spot like a new graffiti piece, and I might know the artist, that's like, it's a different kind of excavation.
Right. Well, I find that, and I like doing that too. And when I stay downtown, that's exactly what I do. And I love it. And it's like, when I'm at home, I'm running trails and there's like a kind of an active meditation kind of aspect to that. But the visual stimulation of running in New York, I mean, even when you're running in the park, it's just constant people watching, it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Like I always run harder and longer and faster in New York City than I do elsewhere because it's just, there's so much energy. You take that energy on and you can just running through the streets and it's so fun. Like it's it's weird. Like, I love trail running, but I think New York City is like one of my favorite places to run because it's so unique in that regard. And you never run out of interesting things to see. And you're just constantly like being enriched by the experience of the visual palette of what this city has to offer.
It's like a game of Frogger.
Yeah, it is. It's a video game. It's like it's totally really like a video game. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm like running, like trying not to get run over by taxi cabs. Same thing like biking to the city. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, there's a stoplight we have to stop, like, damn. It's like, no, this is part of it. Like, this is part of the game, of doing this. So I want to hear like a little bit about like, because it's all about like the urban experience for you of running, right? And you've created like this cultish, movement around this. So like, speak to that a little bit.
I mean, when I moved back from law school, I was in Philadelphia for law school, moved back to New York City, and I was a solo runner. And I really didn't know what it felt like to be part of a community. I'd never been part of team sports. And I showed up one day to this downtown running crew called Bridge Runners. And I was like, oh man, I found like my people. I found like my weirdos. They're like not traditional athletes. Nobody was a former track star. I mean, they're like, God, some of them smoke more weed than is humanly possible. And it's like, I was like, cool, I found like my motley crew. And miles and miles and miles, and like bonded by sweat. We became a family. And then we realized there were little families all over the place. And now we have like friends who are crews in London and in Paris. And we are just like this really rich international community of runners who are kind of off the beaten track. I mean, it was like, we just,
you know what it is,
it's
like
so rogue. You know, it's like the Warriors movie. Like that's
I was going to say
that's what it's like.
It's like Warriors, but or like West Side Story. You know, when I see the Instagram feed, and I'm like, it's this gang. You know, and you're running in New York City. I was like, this is like some weird choreographed like West Side Story.
We're gonna start a snapping, snapping choreography. Yeah, I mean, but there's this herd. There's herd mentality in a good way, not in a following, not in a sheepish way, but in a way that's like, yeah, you're not going anywhere, taxi. Like, we're taking this light, and we literally take over the streets. I mean, hundreds deep sometimes on a run, and we become part of the fabric of New York City in a very real way. I mean, people are just like, whoa, what was that? Like, it's just a force. And I never felt that before. And then, so from there, meeting all these other crews, and then starting my own movement, which is taking it now outside of running into other modalities, and then bringing in the fashion element and the lifestyle element. And that it just sparked something. Like, I don't even know where I got this quote, some really profound, prolific author, I'm sure, but it's, I think it's Rumi, seeking out people who fan your flames. And I'm like, God, I was engulfed. And I was so passionate from these experiences that it got to the point where I was leading a double life. Like, I would just wait all day to make it to the run. And thankfully, most of the runs were later at night, like total night owls. So I was able to make it when I was a lawyer. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've just got to find a way to pay my rent doing this. Right. And somehow I've been able to,
there's no path. There's no
path. There wasn't even anybody I could talk to. Like, it wasn't like there was somebody high up who I just had to like tap into their knowledge. Like, I didn't know anything about this space as a business, and the business as a business was born out of these experiences. Like, really, Bridge Runners is one of the first, if not the first, New York City running crew as like that vernacular has now come to be. And crew differing from a club, and that a club is like a training group, and a crew is like this family, this gang, this it's not what happens on Tuesday night at the run, but it's what happens Wednesday morning at the club,
like,
or it's Saturday at the
purpose.
christening. It's
that extends beyond that, beyond the run that you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Into your whole, like, woven into your entire lifestyle.
Yeah, it's kind of like this ethos driven training style, where you're not really doing it. You're not necessarily doing it for the finish line. You're doing it like to make the family proud. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, an analogy would be, you're on a diet to lose weight, to hit some specific weight, but it's not a lifestyle. It's not what you live and breathe. It's a temporary thing. Or training for a race so that you can qualify for another race or get your best time. Like, it's not really about that. It's about the day-to-day experience of what you're living and breathing by being part of this crew. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to lead a life where there really is no finish line. Like, finish lines are great. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely competitive with myself. I love a PR, all that jazz, but it's kind of like raising the bar and then taking it to the next level, and then harnessing the power of community to do that. And I think that is that for me, that's been the perfect recipe for the catalyst to my success.
Right, like raising the bar for the weakest member of the crew.
Yeah, no runner left behind. Like, that is like a refrain that you'll always hear, because people are always like, oh, we see these pictures and you guys look so rad and badass. And I'm like, you're going to be fine. Like, trust me. Like, the fastest runner in the group at some point has been the slowest runner. Right. Like, it's just the way evolution works.
But you've also had some badass finish lines.
Yeah,
So let's talk about some of these
fun.
epic runs that you've done,
God, I love running. I just do. I just love it. I'm like, I want to go run right now. Yeah, I think, so I've done some trail races, some 50 milers. I think definitely the most humbling thing I've done, and I really want, have you run across the country?
No,
I really want to run across something.
Yeah.
There's something like lodged in the back of my brain about that, but that's an aside. So I think last summer I was running across Utah. I did 5. It was kind of like set up like a stage race. I did 5 marathons in 5 days to raise money for MS Run the US. My mom has MS, and my very, very first marathon I signed up for after a breakup. And I was like, my mom wasn't doing well, and she was having a lot of issues with her MS. And I was like, I gotta do something. And so I signed, that's how my first marathon came to be. And then from there, I was just like, okay, I need more and more and more of this. But the running across Utah as part of that relay team was, I didn't understand until then the mental game that was required as an endurance athlete. I prepared myself for physical discomfort. I did all like the 2-a-days, 100-mile weeks. I mean, I've never run more in my life than preparing for that. And because people were donating, I felt even more pressure to like, I have to do it. I'm telling people and asking people to give me money. I've got to do this thing. So yeah, I started at one point in Utah and finished at the other point, and then passed on the baton to the next runner. So like, 100.
So it was a relay across America.
It's a relay, yeah. So it's
person got a certain distance that they had to cover.
Yeah, point to point. Most people, I actually did the least amount of miles. I think some folks did like 9 straight marathons or more.
Who got like Nebraska?
God, I don't know. I don't know how I got Utah, man. Like, it's funny because the relay was ending right around Labor Day, and I go to Burning Man every year. And I was like, and I really wanted the New Jersey to New York leg because then all my crew could come out and whatever. And I was like, all right, this is going to be pretty much a solo venture then, because I'm going to Utah. I don't know how many people I can get to come with me.
Not urban running.
No, but it was, I mean, you'd think I'd be like taking in the majestic mountains, and like, I was like, screw that mountain. I have to run up it. Like it, thankfully, so there was a documentary film crew there capturing the whole thing. And there's a documentary coming out next year sort of about my journey and my relationship with my mom, and like the hostage thing, and just, I mean, I guess like largely about my life path so far. And they were there to capture it. So I'm really grateful that they have that footage, because now I just saw the trailer and I'm like, that's really beautiful. I'm glad I did that. But in the moment, you're just like so mired in like the rawness of the experience and the pain. But what
was the hardest part of that run?
Mentally, it was just waking up every day and doing it again. Like I would wake up and it'd be like, no way, I'm going to do that again. And really after the 5th, I could have kept going. I mean, physically, I was truly fine. Right. I'd done plenty of training. It was just that little voice inside saying like, you can't do this. And it was just all like an internal conversation that was mind-blowing to me, because I'm like, I have visualized this and prepared and like read all the books. And it was like, you can't prepare for the moments when you're going to be your worst critic. And it was just like standing on the side of the road. I had a total like diva Beyonce moment on the side of the road. There were like 18-wheelers passing by. And I was like, I just had a breakdown. I was like, I'm unsafe. This is like messed up. And I'm like, you're stronger than this. Like, bug up. Like, you almost died at the hand of a gun. Like,
how many marathons in were you when that happened?
That was on my last day. That was my last 10 miles. And
you're ready to throw it in.
No, and it was like totally logical. But it was like in those moments, you become a 2-year-old. Like you are just like an infant, like, and nobody can tell you otherwise. And I think I've definitely like, I've crewed some friends, and I've seen that in other runners. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't alone. Like that was like, I was like hallucinating, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they say never have your friends or people you care about crew for you, because you really, It's
an intense, you've been there. It's
I've been there. It's not pretty. You know what I mean? I talked about it in my book. It's like you start behaving in a way that you're not proud of.
No.
And you're stripped raw. There's nothing there, and that's where you really meet your maker.
Yeah, and you're lacing up, and it's like, who are you really? And I was like, it was not pretty. It's not pretty at the side of that road.
But
then
be able to
I
push,
finished.
but to push through
Yeah.
that's where, like, you talk about like these, the empowerment. I mean, that moment is the moment. Like all the other marathons leading up to that was all for that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I had a really hard race in San Diego recently. I was 1 minute off of BQ in Vermont. And the next week I was running San Diego, and I just happened to, I got the opportunity to run Vermont. San Diego was really my goal race. And I like looked at the elevation and I'm like, oh, it's going to be fine. Mile 21, I just like, and like 8 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, I know. Well, we were going to get into
Okay,
that in a
but
minute.
anyways, but I had a crash. But like the crashes with type 1 are like a crash times a billion. Like it's just like I was gonna start like just clawing up the highway. I mean, it was bad. So this, of course, is a mile ascent up this like freaking freeway in San Diego, and that was like my second. It brought me right back to like that moment in Utah where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I had to just be like, deal with it, dude. You're not going to BQ. You're not going to get your best race. Just finish the finish line for the satisfaction of finishing what you started. And it was kind of amazing to, I liked the process of being able to recognize the disappointment, deal with it, get rid of it, and just keep it going. And then, a little Gatorade helped too.
That would help. I mean, do you have these mornings where you're just, you wake up and you're like, I can't do it today. Like, I'm just beat. I'm tired.
Oh my God. I'm tired so much. Like, people think, oh, you're doing all this stuff. Like, you must just have the energy. I mean, I don't drink coffee. I'm not a caffeine person. I try to, put in, what I think is going to fuel my body the best. And that's not processed stuff. But yes, I absolutely have those mornings where I'm like, oh, I don't have it in me. But then I think about how I'm going to feel on the other end. And that's always so nourished. Like before, so I'll wake up to teach my 6 a.m. classes and I'm like, not today, man. And then I leave those classes and it's like one rider or one moment in the ride when everything comes together and I know that I'm putting out something into the world that like is really authentic and hopefully meaningful to someone.
So thinking it through to its conclusion, sort of.
Yeah. I always, even before a workout, so like I know before like a really tough workout, really tough run or something, like cross training, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I know how gratifying it's going to feel. Even if the workout wasn't what I expected, it's always worth it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to communicate that because I think it would be easy for somebody to listening to this going, well, she's just full of energy. Like, that's not me. I can't do that. She's a freak of nature. You know what I mean? Doing all this kind of stuff. But this is not, it's not like you've been doing this your whole life either. So,
not even a few years. Like, this is just like.
Right. Wait, how many years ago did you quit the law firm?
2.
Oh, it's only been 2. Oh my God.
2 years.
It's like, it just seems like that must have been like 10 years ago at least.
No. I mean, this is like, truly, I like just was like, I'm a consultant. I'm an ultramarathoner.
Right.
I've just like created these titles for myself and then like, did the work and then created the titles.
You have to act as if.
Yeah.
You put that energy
You fake it
out
till you
there,
make it. And then now it's like a thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure you probably have young women come up to you all the time. Like, how did you do what you do? Like, what kind of advice do you give out to people that aspire to your lifestyle? Or to just, because I think, what you exude also is, aside from empowerment is like freedom, know?
I think, oh God, the biggest piece of advice my mother ever gave me was to stay weird. Like, I think we have such a tendency, we as a society, everyone we want to feel included. And I think we do that sometimes by sacrificing parts of ourselves and we don't even realize it. It's like an unconscious submission to other people's standards. And I mean, in a society that's inevitably going to happen, but you have to realize what the kernels are inside and be like, that's a non-negotiable piece. And I was really negotiating too much of myself away when I was a lawyer, but I didn't realize it at the time. And I think people are living at sort of like, I think there's this pervasive like malaise. Like, people are living at like a 50% and they're just okay with it. Like, okay isn't okay. Like, you can actually be happy with the choices that you make and the life that you're leading if you evaluate what's really important to you. Like, what are your triggers? What's your passion? And I'm really fortunate that running unlocked that for me.
Mm-hmm.
But, people do ask me all the time, like, how do I find that for me? And I think it's not things that you're excited about. That's not accidental. Like, figure out a way to marry your skill set with that thing that like makes you want to wake up every day, even if you were doing it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And like, really, I would be doing the work I do now for free if I could, if I could afford it, And I think that's the stuff. Like, that's life.
Right. I mean, I think it's like well, first of all, we're all just plugged into a certain way of life. It's like we're on this treadmill of like how the way that things are supposed to be. And so we're not really compelled, we're not really encouraged, I guess I should say, to look within at all. Really, it's not really part of the Western culture prerogative. So there's that. And then we're all trying to fit in, like you said. So that doesn't encourage individuality or staying weird or kind of expressing what's authentic and unique to yourself. We're kind of programmed to do the opposite, which is to repress that. And so after years and years and years of doing that, it's almost flip for somebody to say, well, like, live your passion. It's like most people are walking around like they're so disconnected from who they are that you can't even begin to answer that question. Like that a question comes much later. There has to be a first step in at least trying to develop a better relationship with yourself so that you can start to delve into that and figure out what that is. Because I know a lot of people who are like, well, I would do something I was passionate about if I knew what I was passionate about. Like, they don't even know and it's not their fault, and I know what that's like. I've been in that place. I didn't know what I wanted to do or be or what was unique about me at all. I was just doing what was in front of me to do. And it's very, very difficult, so like, what is and I'm sure you've encountered lots of people like this. So like, what is that first step that somebody can do?
I think, one thing, I think it's helpful to notice when you're jealous of someone, because
that's really interesting.
It means they probably have something you want.
Yeah, when jealousy really speaks more about you than it's all about you.
Yes.
It's not the other
person. I noticed, like, I know for me, I would look at, people in the fitness movement who have made careers out of it. And I'm like, man, they get paid for that. I want to get paid for that. And it was like this little pang of like desire and jealousy, like, and not in like a romantic jealousy way, but, in a substantive, like, God, I want that, like a yearning.
Mm-hmm.
And we should pay attention to that stuff. I think one of the first things that we can do is really pay attention to our inner monologue. And I believe in like most of the things I've done in business. It's only been a few years, so my journey's just starting, but it's all based on a gut check. It's like pure, am I feeling you or this or not? And if it's not, like, you're out of my sphere, man. Like,
but
I have no time.
You have to be clear before you can trust.
Yeah, you have to,
Check.
exactly. So you have to clear it out. And I actually think,
because your gut check will send you down a dark alleyway.
Yeah,
if you're
true.
Like, if you don't know who you are, you know what I mean? Like,
Very true.
That gut check could be jealousy. Like, you're confusing these conflicting emotions.
Right, absolutely. Well, one thing that has helped me is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I practice.
This is what I was driving at.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
I just led
I'm with you.
So
I dabbled in so many types of meditation, man. I mean, like, it was super hard for me. Like, that's not my natural frequency. Like, I'm not like,
you're vibrating at you're at like 3,000 hertz or whatever.
I'm like a living earthquake. So, I tried guided meditation and like, Gabrielle Bernstein podcasts and like all kinds of stuff, which were fine. But what really helped me was transcendental meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And it's a mantra-based meditation. So I went to this like little course with this guy, actually a former attorney who I used to work with, who's now a meditation guru, Ben Tershin. And Ben gave me my mantra, and that's it. I mean, it was like having that focal point, having that like instrument for thinking, which is literally what a mantra means, let me suspend all this other stuff. Not like I think this mantra and no thoughts come in. I think that's the cool thing about this type of meditation that works for me, is that like you allow the thoughts and then let them go. And then it's just like this passing thing. And somehow there's like, I carve out like this white noise in those 20 minutes, and it works for me, man. It just totally works.
How long have you been doing that?
Not that long. I mean, I've been meditating for over a year, but again, dabbling in all different types of stuff. So I would say probably for like 4 months, like a dedicated TM practice.
Like morning, and you're hitting it like every day, 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night.
Yeah. I skipped 2 days. I skipped 2 days last week, and I was like, and you feel it. Like it's almost like if your body's like craving, like if you're dehydrated and you want water, like when you when you habituate meditation, like your body's like, something's wrong. Like I need it.
Right.
And yeah.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I mean, I just came from interviewing Dan Harris, the Nightline guy, Good Morning America guy, and I've just been talking meditation like all day. You know,
do you meditate?
Yeah. Well, my experience has been erratic, you know, and now I'm on like a really good streak where I've been doing it like really consistently for a month, but I've been doing 20 minutes in the morning, but I haven't gotten to the point where I'm doing it at night yet. But I mean, I can definitely, it's made a huge impact on me. And in the past, I'll do it for a while and I'll stop and I'll do it for a while. And I've been really thinking a lot about like, why do I go in and out of it? And what are the impediments to just creating that kind of momentum and consistency? I don't know that I have the answer to that, but all I know is that it is working really well right now. So I'm getting more and more into it and interested in hearing more about it. But it was great to hear Dan's perspective as being somebody who is such a skeptic, you know, and just really you know, did not want this to be his answer. And for him to kind of discover it and what it's done to his life and his ability to kind of speak to it in a way that is really, powerful, because he can connect with people that ordinarily would not come across it. You know what I mean? So, but he was saying that literally he's like, just do 5 minutes. That's it. Because it's more important that it's doable and that you do it than you hit some kind of number about how long it is, which I thought was interesting.
That's very
especially for people that are beginning. But he's like, just set your intention that you're going to do 5 minutes. If you go over, that's fine. But like, don't create a rule around that. Just make sure that, because everybody has 5 minutes. So you can't create that excuse of like, oh, I don't have time.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's interesting about does he practice TM or Vedic?
No.
Well, that type of meditation, and I'm sure there are many like names for it. It's also not ritualized in any way. So it's not that you have to be on the cushion in your home doing the thing. Like
we were talking about that.
I mean, I've done it on the subway or, you know, anywhere, planes, you know, anywhere that you can close your eyes, and I stick in my headphones and I don't play anything, but it's almost like just the people blocker.
Right. It blocks out a little bit.
And yeah, I mean, you just, it's a portable thing. You just need you.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that if you're not kind of looking inward in that way, then when you're asking yourself these important questions, like what should I do with my life? Where do I want to invest all? I mean, these are huge questions that can change the trajectory of everything that you're doing. Like you better make sure that you're dialed up so that you're making the right choice and that you can rely on your instincts. I mean, you know, when I was out partying and drinking all the time, my instinct says do this. Well, that's a terrible instinct.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
that's a bad move.
So like the gut check is good if you're like doing the work, the inside work.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
But you got to get to that point.
But I do think that, you know, barring sort of the big mistake gut check, you know, gut feelings, people are scared of failing. And I think people need to get a little bit more comfortable with failure. I think if something feels scary to me and I can rationalize reasons why it's not particularly harmful, I usually do it because I think that fear can be a really good form of fuel to do stuff. And of course, that's balanced with like, you know, using rational thought to not put yourself in danger. But
well, I think it's okay to be afraid of failing, but but doing it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like acting as if in the face of that and being willing to fail, like embracing, that failure is part of growth. Like if you're not like failing all the time at whatever, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough to, to expand.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the complacency and the feeling, if you're feeling comfortable all the time, you probably need to be doing some more exciting shit.
Right. Well, I think people that feel comfortable all the time probably are not very happy.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like that 50%, like you're just okay. It's not necessarily like a clinical depression or there's no real low. But if you're like in that just mediocre state, like, release it. Release that mediocrity. Like there's so much out there that can really nourish you. And then you can give that forward to the world. Like, I don't know. I feel so much about like energy and like giving rawness and authenticity out in whatever form that means for you that's productive. And I think people have a tendency to just go about their days and clocking like, oh, it's Monday or oh, it's Tuesday. Like, no, like, dude, the party doesn't have to continue for you to keep dancing. Like, just keep doing your damn thing. And I understand the people who are like, oh, but I don't know what that is. So then like, keep going back to point A and point B and hitting refresh. Like, it's not like, I figured out, oh, I like this, so that's just going to be my thing forever. Like, it's an iterative process. Like, I might decide next week that I need to reset and like, and that's what, and you just keep doing it. And it's like that circuitous process to quote unquote success or quote unquote happiness. It's showing up to that thing every day and continuing that process,
Yeah, I mean, success is not a destination-oriented thing. It's how are you living and breathing in each moment of your day?
Yeah.
You know what I think? And are you embracing the journey that you're on? And are you kind of waking up, excited for what the day might bring you? I mean, that's success. And, listen, I'm sure we both know wildly successful, rich people that are really unhappy, you know, who have pursued happiness in the form that, was portrayed to us as the path to, all of that. And then getting there and going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is not what I thought it would be. And that creates like this crazy existential crisis where you're like, well, what now? Like everything I did was to get to this thing. And now, well, maybe if I get the next car or whatever it is, that will solve it. And then doing that enough to understand like, oh, that's never going to work.
Right.
Now what?
Yeah. And I know that that's a common sort of like American story or Western story. And I just totally can't relate to that anymore. Like sometimes it's hard for me to advise on that or breaking out of that.
But you must have seen partners in your law firm.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I've been
wildly overpaid, or not overpaid, but just incredibly well paid, working incredible hours. And it's not like when you make partner, like, oh, they give you the key to the executive washroom and it's all good. Like it's just more work and more responsibility. And then, and a lot of, I don't regret my life as a corporate lawyer either. Like I learned a lot. I met amazing, brilliant people, but it was definitely not the life for me. And I saw a lot of unhappy people who, medicated themselves through buying things they couldn't, always kind of living just a little bit beyond what they could afford. So you're perpetually enslaved and you're really never able to part with it. Like you're shackled to it.
Oh yeah. And I remember, it was like what the young associates were doing. People were buying property and I was like, all right, I should buy an apartment, right? That's what makes sense. Like I should move in with this guy and we should buy an apartment and I should have a kid, right? And then it's like, no joke. It was the night before I was supposed to sign the contract on this apartment. I was like, but it's a great deal and it's in Williamsburg and it's up and coming and blah, blah, blah. I was like, what are you doing? You're going to be shackled with a mortgage and you don't even want this job. And that was 2 years before I actually left. And it took 2 years to build the courage. So I don't say like flippantly, like, just like quit your job and like do epic things. Like, no, I get it. But
these are hard things.
I was definitely at that crossroads. And I even had that, that thought process that it was like, oh, I'm going to buy the apartment and then I'm going to feel like empowered by that. And really like it had nothing to do with buying anything or owning anything. And it was all like truly pushing and pulling my own body weight. It was the most basic thing I could figure out.
Right. So even though that was 2 years prior, there's this little seedling
Mm-hmm.
that's growing, that's going, yeah, don't get too invested in what's going on here.
Yeah. And then it was like, live below your means, like save up money. And if I hadn't done that, there is no possible way I could have left. There's no way, because I wouldn't have been able to afford to leave and pay law school loans and, life.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always say to young people is like live lean, like don't buy stuff, like just be the best insurance policy on your freedom and being able to make choices is to live lean.
Yeah,
like live as lean as possible when you're young.
Totally agreed. Totally, and I'm so grateful that I rarely think about that. And that was a real crossroads for me that I didn't even recognize as one. I was just like, I'll figure this out later. And then a few years later, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a mortgage. Like, this is major. I can pick up and leave whenever I want. I mean, I freedom, portability, like, those are very real concepts in my life.
Right. All right. So type 1 diabetes.
Type 1, man.
That was so shocking when you just posted it on Instagram one day. And I was like, what?
I know.
Like out of the blue. Like, first of all, I didn't even know that that's the way it could work. Like, I thought like type 1 was something, of course, type 2 we know there's a lot of lifestyle components to that. Type 1 is very different. And that's something that, I thought was sort of more of like a genetic thing that would have been diagnosed like very much earlier in life.
So type 1 used to be called juvenile diabetes. And it was just, I just came back from a month-long trip in India and I thought I was jet lagged or something. And I felt really dehydrated. And my mom's a physician and she was like, this doesn't sound right. We need to get blood work. So it was like Tuesday blood work, Wednesday endocrinologist, Thursday I'm on insulin. Like,
out of the blue.
And they did an A1C test, which basically goes back in your blood work and like measures your glucose levels and all this stuff. And for months, I'd done 3 marathons with type 1 and I had no idea. Like, I was just running at such a high level that I was burning just enough sugar to not be hospitalized. But essentially, type 1 means that your pancreas makes little or no insulin. So it's just an autoimmune disease. And my pancreas just like, it's on strike forever.
Wow.
Like, it's just
amazing.
done.
And you were walking around and running around with that for
months.
For
like at least 4 months.
You could have just had a serious problem, right?
Big time. Actually, most type 1s are diagnosed in the hospital because there aren't any symptoms really. And they have such high sugars that, your organs start to shut down. You have ketoacidosis and tons of terrible stuff happens. And the effects of running with that high of sugar is pretty major for every single organ in your body.
Right.
So it's unbelievable. And of course, people are shocked. It's like, I'm a really healthy person, otherwise very healthy. And when my endocrine, I was like, oh my God, is this pancreatic cancer or something crazy? How could this happen to me? And it was like, again, one of those pivotal moments where the endocrinologist is like, you have type 1 diabetes. And I was like, fuck, no way. And then I was like, what do I do about it? How do I run ultras? Like, literally, that was like the first thing that came out of my mouth. And she was like pulling out like, this was like an emergency visit. I didn't have an endocrinologist before. So she really didn't know me. She just was looking at this blood work and like diagnosing me on paper.
She's like, that's your first question?
Yeah. Well, she pulls out this like, USDA like food portion map or whatever. I was like, listen, chick, that's not the conversation we're having. We're talking about how I can run a 100-mile race. And my friend Stephen England is an incredible athlete. He's done like Leadville and he's training for a 200-mile race around Tahoe in September. And he's a type 1 diabetic. He's had type 1 since he was 14. He was one of the first people I called. It was like, my mom, Stephen. Because I just needed like that. Thankfully, I know him because so much of the information out there, even for athletes with type 1, there's a handful of Olympians, but it's not really, it's not really out there in terms of like.
There's a professional cycling team called Team Type 1.
Yeah, my friend Steven's on it.
Okay, cool.
Novo Nordisk is the team.
The sponsor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my friend Steven introduced me to those guys and he's part of the running component of that.
Oh, cool. So there's a running team part of that.
Yeah.
as well.
So it started as a cycling team. And they've done like incredible stuff.
Yeah, there are amazing cyclists on that team.
Amazing. They're truly professional athletes. And then there's a tri team, and then there's the running team. And a lot of the runners are marathoners and ultra marathoners. So Stephen was like, "You're gonna have to figure out your own like treatment, but yes, like this, and that are possible.
Right. So how does it work?
I felt better.
So how does it, so like, what does it mean? Like when you go out to train, like how do you have to
I'm constantly battling low blood sugar. That's the biggest thing for me.
You okay right now?
Yes, I'm okay. I can sense it, thankfully. I mean, because I have body awareness.
How do you know? Do you get lightheaded or how does it come on?
It's like, it's a combination of feeling voraciously hungry and brain fog. Like for me, that's how I know. It's like I just feel fuzzy. Like your brain needs sugar to function, right? If you go below a certain level, you'll be in a coma. And most people, their pancreas produces insulin to sort of regulate that automatically. As long as you're eating, in proportion to your body weight and you're not, being excessive with your lifestyle, like most people are pretty good. And for me, I have an insulin pump that gives me an eye drop of insulin every 7 minutes. Thankfully, I have this pod because the pod combined with the glucose monitoring device that I have, both. I mean, technology is everything. Like, I don't know how I would do it if I had to carry needles around on like a 4-hour run or something. Like, it would be insane. So basically, I have a little personal monitoring device that I adjust my insulin based on
and it's like
what I do.
So hold on. So it's like implanted in you.
Yeah, it's right here.
That's right. Oh, wow. Look at that.
It's literally under
hip.
my skin, but I move it. So I change this every 3 days, and sometimes I wear it on my arm. And I remember when, I was going through the training, the lady's like, you can put it on your arm, you have to move it or else it creates scar tissue because it's really a needle that goes under your skin. And I was like, oh, I would never wear it on my arm. God, I would never want it to be public. And then of course, 10 days later, I'm like, what's up, Instagram? Here's my pod. I'm loud and I'm proud. But I had to own it. I just had to own it. It's like, that's my reality. And they had never seen somebody so aggressively pursue all this technology. I was like, give it all to me. I want all the data. I want all the information. I want to be empowered. And seriously, I didn't even waste an hour being like, why? I was like, you're just going to have to deal with this and you're strong enough. So go. And that's what happened. So it sucks. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a 24/7 tightrope walk of making sure I'm in between high and low. And as an athlete, it's more battling lows than anything else. And, I'll teach 3 cycling classes in a row and so I'll just have to have something there, always, you know?
You just have to plan ahead a little bit and just be on top of monitoring it. But the only time you ever really thought you were almost getting in trouble was running that marathon.
In San Diego. Yeah. It was bad. I was about to, without some sugar in my system. And there was no rhyme or reason for it. It's I feel just like my training runs. I feel just like literally a week prior, same distance, same fuel, same goose, same whatever, same game plan. Body just reacted differently. And it's just that's the unpredictability. 80% of the time, this is how Steven explained it to me, and it's totally true. 80% of the time, once you have an understanding of your diabetes, you got it under control. But then there's that 20% that your body just goes crazy. You just don't know.
So you just have to always be ready in the event of that unpredictable moment.
Yeah. It's hey, make bag snacks. I literally at any given time of day, I probably have a honey stinger in my sports bra. Right. I probably have food tucked away somewhere, even though I'm wearing all of 2 articles of clothing. Right.
Cool. So I want to talk about kind of when you gave your talk at Catalyst, it was really the theme of it was tell your own story, right?
Yeah.
Be your own story. And how does that, how do you kind of communicate that to the people that you work with to help raise their bar of their experience? Because a big part of living a passionate life, and you exude this, is giving back, right? Like a part of what gets you out of the bed in the morning is that that you're helping other people and that you're having a positive impact on others. And that's a huge motivating factor. And it's a big part of, basically your own personal fulfillment, happiness equation, right?
Yeah.
So what is the mechanism by which you are able, let me back up. There's nothing more powerful than a good story well told, right? So and the ability to effectively communicate a good story, whether it's your story or somebody else's story, is one of the most empowering and inspirational things that you can do. And you're very good at it. And your lifestyle is like an extrapolation of that, right? So how does that how do you infuse that into the people that you're interacting with? That's a pretty vague question.
No, I mean, kind of.
You know what I'm getting at though?
Well, I think
I really
you're
just want to
asking,
talk about story.
Yeah. Well, how do you own it? I mean, I think it really goes back to people talk when they're figuring out like a startup or whatever. It's like, what are your brand values? Like we have so much conversation around like how marketing should look or feel or sound. And what I really like to encourage people to think about is if you are the CEO of your body, like head to toe, what are you putting out into the world and what you do and what you say and how you feel, Because one of the best things that you can do is take care of yourself. That's a service to others. That's not selfish. That's taking care of your own home, your own, body and being of service to the world in whatever capacity you can be. And I think the owning, the empowerment of it, I discovered it through physical activity. Like I really think that some type of fitness is a way to tap into unlocking your why. And I think when you identify your why, then all these other things fall into place. You have a little bit more clarity, like the cleaning, the cleaning of the cobwebs, so to speak, that you sort of mentioned, like making sure your internal compass is dialed in. I really do think that sweat is cathartic in a really major way. And not to say that, somebody's going to go for a run and decide like, oh, I want to be an ultra runner. Oh, I want to, be X, Y, Z and related to sports or wellness. Not to say that at all. But I do think that there's some clarity that comes with it. And I think from there, from sort of that base, then you start to realize like the literal and visual conversations that you're having with the world. And I think especially because of the social media fragmentation, we kind of are looking at things in like this really jarring, like Instagram post, Facebook post, tweet, FOMO, YOLO, like all these, like, I mean, really, that's just like, that's a modern day, just existential, like, question of nowness. And I think when we're thinking of what our legacy is going to be and all these really lofty questions, at the end of the day, it's just like, are you living and writing stories that are going to be really juicy when you're 90? Like, are you doing something that matters in your gut? Not because it's, some lofty linear story, literally, that, that could be fictionalized, but because you're making connections with people and building community and like, eating real food and just like all these little things. Like, it's all about the little things. And I think my point is when you're saying write your story, when I'm saying write your story and own the pen, it's more like, are the little decisions and little thoughts that you're having every day adding up to this larger picture that you see for yourself? And I think people should take excitement in that. Like there is just so much power in that ability to literally stop the thing that you're doing that's not nourishing you or the world and cut that shit out. Do something epic. Like it's not that easy, but it is that easy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the trick is for the person who feels trapped and they're like, well, that's great, but like, I can't do that. It's about that first step. Like, what's that first letter that you're writing when you're writing your story? Just write one letter.
Right. Start with something.
Like, you have to start with something. And
surround yourself.
And you don't
with
need to know you don't need to know what your legacy is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just have to follow a thread. Like, I'm feeling pulled in the direction of trying to learn how to play the drums or whatever it is. It could be the stupidest thing in the world, And I think there's a lot of embarrassment around that kind of stuff. It's like, these are juvenile aspirations that we've been told, we should sort of push aside and get on to the business of being responsible adults.
Well, I think the process of reinvention, first of all, I think it should happen always. But secondly, I think especially as adults, we feel like, well, I already wrote my story. I'm already this and I'm already that. And I'm already a dad. And I'm already like, this is me. But like you're evolving every day. Like literally on a cellular level, you're always evolving. So like take your body's cue and just bring it up here and, you know, allow yourself the freedom to not know. And when we go back to thinking why we pursue certain things as kids, like, it's just because you're like, that seems fun.
Yeah, there's nothing else going on other than that, right?
You know, like it's.
So why can't it be like that?
Don't follow somebody else's script. Like, go take the cooking class. Go take the drum lessons. Like, somebody was in my class the other day and she was like, God, I always really wanted to take a ballet class. I was like, do it. Like, who cares? Yeah, you're probably never going to be in the New York Ballet at like X years old, but why not? Just freaking do it. You don't know what that's going to open up. Like, maybe you're meant to be the PR person for that. You know, it's like you just don't know how the dominoes are going to fall.
And you shouldn't necessarily even try to understand that. You know what I mean? And I think that what happens is, whether it's your story of going from corporate lawyer to the things that you're doing now, or, you know, Dan Harris going from having a panic attack on national television in front of 5 million people to being like this advocate for meditation. The sort of media narrative is to compress that and to make
into
it
like
sexy
a 30-second.
It's like, this just happened overnight. Like you were a corporate lawyer and you snapped your fingers and now you're like doing all this amazing stuff. Or, you know, I lost 50 pounds in 2 minutes and ran Ultraman like a week later, you know, and it's like, when you look at the timeline, like I was talking about this with Dan, he had his panic attack in 2004 and he didn't do his first 5-minute meditation until 2009. That was 5 years later.
Yeah.
So it's like the neatly packaged narrative that the media, you know, is shoving down your throat isn't actually real. You know, this is like hard work, and it's like, you know, throwing pebbles in the pond and it's putting your toe in the water and then slipping and doing a million things that are embarrassing and messing up and failing and not knowing what you're doing and questioning yourself and all of these things. But all of those things are not failures, they're successes, because they're just steps along this journey, you know? And so I think the important thing is to embark on the journey, to have the courage to embrace the not knowing. And it doesn't have to be about goal setting or achieving some objective. It's about just embracing something different and new, something that might be intimidating, but you're inexplicably drawn to, and just not trying to understand the why behind it.
Yeah. And I think almost all of my lessons in the past few years have been in retrospect. Like, it's not like in the moment I'm necessarily understanding the poignancy of something in that time. I think it's the reflection that is important.
You look back on it and it seems to create this, you can write your story retrospectively by looking backwards and going, oh, this makes perfect sense. Of course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, Dan Harris got assigned to cover spirituality and religion. You know, he didn't want to, you know, and that set him on a path. He didn't know why he was doing that then. You look back now and it's like, oh, like that's something that a novelist would have fabricated for a book. You know, like that doesn't just happen. And that's happened to me many times, these weird things that have happened. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Absolutely.
And then you can write the narrative like backwards like that. But when it's happening, it doesn't make sense. You don't understand it. And I think it's about being okay with that.
Yeah, you do. And I think that being okay with that discomfort, like a lot of life is uncomfortable. It's not always going to be like, I do believe in celebrating little victories, 100%. But most of the time, if you have any type of momentum, you're going to have discomfort, a lot of discomfort along the way.
Discomfort is the crucible for growth and change anyway. Like you should welcome the discomfort. If you're uncomfortable, then something's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. I mean, I feel that all the time. And I think people, like you mentioned about Dan Harris, or even people's like success stories, you know, you look at people, whatever, Warren Buffett, like these icons in Western society. And when you break down those stories, you know, whether in their books or whatever, you're like, damn, that was a lot of hustle. Like that was a lot of little stepping stones and a lot of seeds planted. Like I say, like plant a whole field of seeds. You don't know what's going to sprout. Like those connections might not even happen until decades later. And it is in retrospect that sort of the synchronicity of things kind of pop up and you're like, whoa, like that was, absolutely supposed to happen for me.
Right. And it's about not making judgment calls on the good or the bad of whatever is happening. Like right when you walked in, we were talking before we started recording, and you were supposed to go to LA and do this TV show.
Yeah.
Right.
In 3 days.
I was in social media, you were getting all ready to go. It was an exciting thing. And then at the last minute, the plug up. So what happened like that?
So I was supposed to, I'm still so frustrated about it. Literally, the executive producer called me like an hour ago. I was supposed to be on this show with NBC and Esquire Network where it was called Enter the Wild. And we were going to literally live in the wild for a month with this survival tracker professional guy, Tom Brown. And apparently he pulled out from the show. And now it's
3 days before.
3 days. I mean, this was like, if anyone can imagine taking a month away from your life, literally off the grid, no business calls, no family calls, nothing.
Yeah, you got to get ready.
I mean,
for
that is like,
there's like a lot of prep that's gone into
everything. And I work with, because I have such like my work is like with a lot of different brands and a lot of different studios. It's not like I tell one boss and I take a leave. You know, I had to like contact like 20 people to get their okay, or just to give them notice. So yes, to say that was like, I mean, that was a blow, man. And just that call, and I was so excited about it. I was excited about like doing this amazing thing. I was like, this is my next adventure. Like this is, you know, I'm in that place where I'm like, what's next? Like, I want something else. And the driven part of me is like, yeah, that's your challenge. You're going to be some warrior chick in the woods. And yeah, it looks like very likely it's not going to happen now. And
but
I know, and that's creating space. But I know well enough to know that is creating space for whatever it is I am supposed to be doing.
I mean, the next thing that came out of your mouth was like, well, there obviously is something better, or I wasn't supposed to do that. It's sort of, you were talking about planting a ton of seeds. Well, that was a seed that germinated and was starting to grow and was about to sprout, and the lawnmower just ran it over.
Yep.
So it's like, all right, well, what other seeds look like they're popping up over here, and let's just go over there.
Yeah. And like, you know, my sister's going to Thailand next week from India, and I'm like, maybe I should be going to Thailand. You know, I mean, it's just like, that's how my mind works. And it's only through falling flat on my face so many times. And wallowing does nothing. It does nothing. Not to say you shouldn't let like the disappointment, you should feel it, you know, you should feel how you feel, but just got to move on to the next thing.
How was India?
Oh God, I can't wait to go back. My sister's living there for another year, so I will have an opportunity to be there again. But
where were you in India?
My sister was living in Delhi at the time, so I was in Delhi, and then we went to Agra, where the Taj Mahal was, which is, have you been to Taj Mahal? It is like just as impressive as you'd think it'd be, like gasp worthy. That will never become a cliche. Like Taj Mahal is as epic as it should be. So we went to Taj Mahal. Then we went to Rishikesh, which is an amazing area which is kind of like, it's where the Beatles learned to meditate. It's kind of like dubbed as the birthplace.
Lots of ashrams.
Yeah, lots of ashrams, birthplace of meditation, all that. And that was amazing. Like, so many people searching. Like, I have never been in a place where you just felt like people were seeking and craving and wanting like answers, like with a capital A, answers. And that was really like weird and neat. I kind of thought it'd be like this Zen yoga place. And there's tons of yoga, but not like Western yoga, very hatha yoga, very, very different types of yoga than I'm used to, which is a vinyasa practice. But what was so interesting to me was not the yoga at all. It was more like the interactions with like travelers and these like just nomadic kind of folks who find themselves at like a satsang in this random, you know, it's like this Brazilian picture of this like Brazilian guru and 100 random people just like chanting. And I'm like, and they're all very visually different, all colors, all ages. And I'm just like, we all are here. Like, it was a weird, you know, it's rare that I have these like moments that just give me absolute pause. And I'm like, this is like, we're all here in this time-space continuum. I don't know. It was like this really like weird snapshot that I recognized as a snapshot, which is also rare. So India was amazing. Rishikesh was just such a trip and beautiful. right at the foot of the Himalayas. Goa, we also spent some time in Goa, southern beaches. That was amazing. We were in, oh my God, what was the name of the beach? The most southern beach. Totally forgetting now.
Goa's pretty south too, isn't it?
No, so Goa is the most southern state, but then the most southern beach in Goa is where we were, and I cannot believe I'm forgetting the name. Maybe that's a good thing because I don't want it to get overcrowded because it's already getting too touristy. But and it was such a gift to be able to hang out with my mom and my sister. Like I don't remember the last time we spent more than 3 days together.
Right.
So I think I have a tattoo on my arm. These are swallows, and it's 3 birds, and the middle one is my mom, the bottom one is my sister, the top one is me, and it just kind of honors all our journeys.
Right.
And my mom is a real example of reinvention. She's a Cuban refugee and taught herself English watching Sesame Street and PBS at 16, and then 8 years later was in medical school. So she's a really inspiring story for me. Mm-hmm. And then my sister, even though she's my little sister, is way wiser than I probably will ever be, and is now living in India and working for an NGO and just literally changing the world. So I'm sort of bookended by these amazing women who inspire me in very, very unique ways. And it wasn't lost on me that we were kind of like all 3 of us on this beach in India, and I managed to take a month off. And it was just like I was like, okay, sunshine, this is it, like literally in a bottle. So
yeah, that's
it was great.
That's really cool. What do you think about this sort of dearth of female role models? We're in the world of the Kardashians.
Oh my God, I know.
The Bachelorette and all this sort of thing. And there just really aren't, we're in a crisis when it comes to that.
It's a huge crisis. I mean,
and it's not that there aren't amazing women doing incredibly inspiring things all over the place, but it's a misdirect when it comes to media,
the most readily available images. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky, and your kids are lucky because they're surrounded by their mom. But unfortunately, it's starting from the closest images that you have to you, for a lot of girls, and I don't know how to change it. I mean, I would like to think like that is really one of the things I want to do with Undo. We sort of featured these vignettes and empowering stories of real people doing awesome stuff. And we want to encourage people to tell their stories and be visible and vocal about the stuff that they're doing, because then, that sort of raises the consciousness a little bit and the dialogue. But, in terms of like crazy celebrity culture and the rabbit hole of like Us Weekly, which I will definitely buy on a plane and, whatever. I've done it. I admit it. But, I'm also old enough to know, it's like, would I give that to like a little kid and show that as an example of what to be in the world? Absolutely not. So, I don't know,
but
man.
I think that there is a mass yearning for that. It's not an isolated thing. So it seems like it could be something that you could weave into the brand consultancy work that you do, like to be able to, sort of, raise the pedestal of maybe some women that you haven't heard of and put them, in an ad for a brand in a way that's aspirational for young girls,
Yeah,
like there has to be opportunities for that.
There are really
work within the system.
There are really good organizations that I've worked with. Like I Am That Girl is kind of, the messaging behind it is really cool. It's kind of like, I am that girl it's basically getting accomplished people to be like, yeah, I am that girl who was made fun of for running, which I literally was. Mm-hmm. I was made fun of, by the way, for how I ran when I was in 6th grade. Little things like that to sort of like spark dialogue and inspire folks. But I think from an aesthetic perspective, from like a stylized perspective, it's really important to sort of bring people from like the fray and bring them in. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's sort of what the running crew community did for runners. And I think that it's something that the wellness movement can now do for women. Like, I think that it is absolutely a beacon. I think the wellness movement is a beacon of light for women, and in a really healthy way, not in a way that's focused on body image, but in a way that's focused on empowerment in a very different, it's a different type of feminism, I think, honestly. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. We got to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes, but I did want to ask you about your experience going up to Vermont and working with the Love Your Brain guys, with Kevin
and guys.
So when we were in Vegas, we had the great honor of meeting the Pierce brothers. And Kevin Pierce, for those who don't know, was a incredible snowboarder who was well on his way to the Olympics and potentially beating Shaun White. And he had a massive head injury shortly before 2 Olympics ago, right? And it's been a long road back for him with his health, and he's doing great now. There was an amazing documentary made about his life called The Crash Reel, which was on HBO. I don't know if it's still airing, but if you have a chance to see this documentary, it's extraordinary. And Robin and I both had the great opportunity to meet these guys at this event, and it was really touching. You know, they're special guys, for
Very
sure.
special guys.
And they put together. So they have a nonprofit called Love Your Brain, and they were putting together a group of people to do the Burlington Marathon, right? And you wanted to coach them and get them ready. So I want to hear about that.
So fun. I mean, gosh, that was so. Adam and Kevin reached out to me to coach the team, and Love Your Brain has had a lot of different participants on the team. So the Burlington Marathon allows people to participate in the marathon as a relay, as a half, or as a full distance.
Mm-hmm.
So people kind of pick the distances they were capable of running. And Will Halby his family has a farm in Vermont called oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of this either. My brain. So they have a farm in Vermont, and I'm so sorry, Will, did I forget the name? But they host us, and they have this like amazing community that they basically allow nonprofits to come and, you know, host their events there.
The pictures looked incredible.
It's stunning. And for me, like, speaking of nature from New York, that was
being an urban girl.
I was like, oh, I really needed this air. I needed this greenery. And, you know, like truly on a cellular level, I needed it. So I basically helped coach the 70-person team. And, so, you know, some people were running 5Ks, some people were running 10Ks, a few people were running the full, a bunch of people running the half. And we spent 5 days out there, and it was so much more than a marathon. Like, I got there on a Thursday, and we had like a storytelling circle where you have traumatic brain injury victims talking about, you know, one girl was thrown off a horse, and like, she's, you know, basically, you know, wheelchair bound. And she walked a mile of, you know, she walked a mile of the marathon. So little things like that are not so little when people tell their stories, and you're like, your jaw's on the floor. Like, I can't believe I'm surrounded by so much goodness. And so it was really about raising awareness for traumatic brain injury and prevention. And I think what Love Your Brain is doing now, entering sort of this like team-based sports world, is really cool, because you're allowing the actual survivors to do something that's really empowering. Then you're spreading the message on prevention. And then you're creating this team bond around running, which is like freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's really
so it was a 5-day camp, and basically both the survivors and some educators and family members all came together. You know, we did yoga, we had meditations, we cooked food, like, and all like sort of brain-rich foods. It was just like a 24-hour
awesome fest
for 5 days. Yeah. So a 5-day awesome fest. Unlike Love Fest. Like by the end, we're all just like, literally, we're having a dance in the barn. And Zeno Mountain Farm. That's the name of the farm. Oh, I knew it was in there. So then we're just having we're literally like dancing with our shoes off, and they had a DJ, and it was just like, oh, when do you get to do that? It was so special.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that again. We're definitely going to do that again.
Cool.
And you have to join us.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, Adam emailed me. He was like, hey, can you help with some of the nutrition stuff? And I think I was in the Middle East. I was traveling, and just wires got crossed. I didn't get back to him right away. But I would love, I want to support what those guys are doing. They're doing amazing work, and there's a need for it. And
such a need, and such a misunderstanding. I mean, to be honest, it was because of Love Your Brain that I started wearing a bike helmet, and I just had a crash like last week. I mean, I'm totally fine, but I ended up getting dinged in my back wheel. Like, I just went over, and there's a brain is a pretty cute accessory. So I need that. So
You can't
I'm
be
really
riding your bike in New York City without a helmet.
Dude,
man.
for five-
I know
for 5
people
years
do
I
it,
did.
but like that's crazy.
I know it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. But you know, I know a lot of people do it. And it was truly because of that 5-day weekend where I was like, God, this is important. And not only is it important, it's a total slap in the face to these people who I like admire and respect so much. And like, I can't, I gotta be on board
when you
with
see that up close like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's stories where, I mean, it's like one woman fell off a ladder and like had to get like part of her vocal cords removed. I mean, and like now has like, it's just, it's a problem that a lot of times isn't visible. And TBI survivors, like they're battling it kind of silently a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Love Your Brain is doing is raising awareness. And then Kevin is just such an inspiring guy and such a genuine dude, and their family's so special. So they're really good, important, necessary leaders of that.
Yeah, it's an amazing family. You
Yeah.
know, it's that documentary really is about as much. It's really a family story as much as anything else. And you know, Kevin's just a love. I mean, that
He
guy
is. He is. He is love. He is love. And I got to meet his parents, and I was just like, you guys, I feel like you're like, I love you. And they're like, they probably get it all the time because they're like total complete strangers, see this documentary, and they're just like, you're so special. And they all are. And it's weird. It's not weird. It's fantastic that they happened to be so sort of in tune with relationships that they cultivated such a special group of people for this camp. Like it wasn't just like you applied and went. It was like people who really cared about sharing. And it wasn't necessarily about sharing TBI stories. It was just like about story and about connection and about feeling inspired no matter where you're coming from, and then leaving and taking that into your community and like doing something. And that spark, I mean, those are the seeds, those are the sparks that create movements. So I'm really happy to know those guys.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's a great place to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So cool. I love having you.
This
You were
flew by.
fantastic. I know, it goes fast, right?
So fast.
Right. So everybody out there, start writing your own story.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Own the pen.
That's right. Own the pen. And if you're crushing, I should say, on Robin, the best way to seek her out and stalk her would be on Instagram. It's at Robin NYC, right?
That's
and,
right.
On Twitter is the same.
Yep.
No, it's
And RobinArzon.com.
RobinArzon.com. All right, cool. Well, I love you. It was fantastic.
I love you too. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks so much. And we'll do it again next time I come
Thanks,
to New
man.
York, all right? All right. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks.